Ooh. Danielle, you're not at the campfire.
No, I'm not. I was all weekend, but not.
That's true. You already spent your campfire time.
Yes.
We've got some real estate horror stories today, and hopefully, we'll hear from some attendees who might have some too. Um, Sometimes it gets a little, Nicole is here. Yay. Nicole, you had a great realtor, so you don't have any horror stories. I hope. But sometimes we don't, sometimes it can be a little bit wonky with the commenting. So hopefully we'll see everybody's comments. If we don't see your comments, or if you want to comment later, go ahead and message us. We're going to be doing this all October, horror stories. So today it's just kind of random. We might narrow in on some themes coming up. But I've got a couple of my own that I'm going to tell. And then we've got some that we've gathered from some other agents as well.
Absolutely.
So when we tell clients, when we start out, like 1,000 things can go wrong in a transaction, we can't possibly prepare you for all the possibilities because there's 1,000 of them and 995 won't happen.
Right.
But there will be something. There's always something. And sometimes it's a possible crisis averted. Like for instance, we do a pretty thorough walkthrough when we are closing with our buyers. And so we have a checklist that we go through and just kind of visually inspect everything on the inside and the outside of the house. And just to recap, a walkthrough is when you go to look at a house that you're going to buy just before you buy it. And I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong with realtors who do them at different times than we do, but we like to do them as close to the closing as possible. And I'm going to tell you the reason for that. I was a pretty new realtor, and I had my checklist that you and I put together. We looked at other people's stories, and we, kind of figured out what would happen. And so we had a pretty good idea of what we needed to look at. And I always tell the buyers, we're looking to make sure that everything that is supposed to be here is here, and everything that's not supposed to be here is gone. That's basically what you're doing at the inspection. So the buyer and I were there, and it was cold outside. It was winter. And she was inside admiring again the beautiful kitchen. This was a flip. It had been empty for some time, and everything had been redone, and it was really gorgeous. And she was, opening the drawers and getting ready to move in, figuring out where the boxes would go a couple hours later. And I did my visual inspection on the inside of the house. And then I went out to the outside of the house and walked around it in the snow and said, oh, there's no central air conditioner. Somebody had stolen the entire AC unit, left cut off wires and drag marks. And thank God we had noticed it at the walkthrough. So when we went to closing, unfortunately for the seller, they had to give the buyer enough money to replace the air conditioner, or I think they actually arranged for a new air conditioning unit to be installed. So that's something that could have been so easily missed in the dead of winter with snow on the ground.
Totally. And how many months before you realized?
And you go to turn on the air conditioner, and all of a sudden it's not there. And it was like around the side of the, central air conditioners are usually not in a.
They try to make it inconspicuous.
Exactly.
For the most part, if it can.
So that was a crisis averted. Yes. Another one that I personally had. Oops. We had a client who was day before closing, moving out. Her help did not show up. That's right, Nicole. But I walked around the side of your house on Piccadilly when you bought that house, because this had already happened to me. I knew it was never going to happen again.
Ruth was the one who walked on the outside.
Mm-hmm. And we have a checklist, and the checklist came in handy once when we had a client with a 3-car garage, and when they moved in, they opened one of the bays, and all of the boxes were stacked in where the third bay was. They never opened that door. And so a few weeks later, when they went to open it, it didn't work. And they had a home warranty, and they said, the home warranty company said, well, that must not have been working when you moved in. And I said, oh no, I checked all the doors. It's on my checklist. I have it here. I have it signed. I have it dated. So they were able to recover that repair from their home warranty because we had that. So we had a single mother moving out of her home, and her help didn't show up. So she called me in a panic very late. She said, we're not going to make it. I can't get the last of the things out of here and this place clean in time. So I said, okay, we're going to drop everything. My family's coming over. We're going to help. Kids, get in the car, grab some cleaner rags. We're going. So we all went over there, me and Tim and the kids, and we're scrubbing and mopping, and I turn on the self-cleaning oven, and she says, oh, I never used that. And I said, oh, I do it all the time. And a couple hours later, when we think we're done, I go to open the self-cleaning oven, and it's broken. It's dead. It doesn't work anymore. Apparently this happens, and you should not use your self-cleaning oven thing.
Especially after many, many, many years.
Yes.
Unless you're looking for a new one. Maybe I need
Unless you want a new one. Yeah. So
I'll go do that.
So those buyers got a brand new oven from their seller's realtor, which was nice for them.
Yes.
So those were a couple of my, and then there was, speaking of garage doors, we always test that at the walkthrough, and the garage door didn't open. So press the button a couple of times, it made that little noise and nothing happened. Well, it was the coldest day of the year. It was like 80 below zero. And I said, it might just be that it's so cold, but honestly, that's the day you want your garage door opener to work for sure, right? So the attorneys worked it out, and some money was going to the buyer from the seller to repair the door. Well, the buyers moved in, and there was a sticker next to the garage door opener from a garage door company that had been, there for maybe the install or service or something. So that's just who they called. It was the easiest thing to do, to call the person on the sticker. And the guy came out and he said, oh yeah, I was here a couple of weeks ago. I told him he needed a new one.
Oof.
So that seller's pants were on fire.
Yes.
And, most of the time we're working with people who are honest and honorable, and then occasionally we're not. So that was kind of a crappy one.
Look, I mean, not that you want to have those unknown expenses right off the bat, but I mean, in the grand scheme, luckily it was something that either could be put off or something that, hopefully wouldn't leave them, financially.
First of all, the money that was being held in escrow, I thought at first, I'm like, well, that's kind of a lot too.
Now you're happy. those attorneys have been around the block too and have some horror stories too.
Exactly.
That's happened. Absolutely. Yeah. I do your story about things being missing. I've heard similar stories in the sense of appliances being gone. So there was an instance, actually, one of my friends had a listing. It was an empty listing. It was a flip. It was a very nicely done flip. And in the middle of the night, the appliances all were stolen. It was an empty house, and they knew it and somehow got access. It was awful. Luckily, insurance, took care of that. But then another, actually same thing, appliances gone, but it was a new construction. And, we talk about having our walkthroughs, our final walkthroughs, as close as possible to our closing date. And that's great when it's a resale. Unfortunately, with new construction, The
You're
builders
at the
have a lot of
builder's
say.
mercy. You have to do it on their timeline, whatever
They
that
have
is.
their own contracts. They have their own set of rules that are not like a traditional resale that you might be used to.
Which,
So,
by the way, just I have to throw in a commercial because that's why you need us in a new build. Those contracts are built for them, not
absolutely. And their salespeople are usually not
frustrating.
realtors, they're salespeople. They can lie to you
They
all day
don't
long.
have to follow our code of ethics.
Nope.
They do not have to do the things that we have to do. They're not even licensed, right? If it's sales staff, I don't think
sometimes.
so.
I think some of the
Sometimes
small
they are, but
builders
I
might
don't think
have,
most of them are.
but yeah.
So they don't even have a license you can go after.
Yeah, absolutely. They're salespeople that are sell their property. But anyway, I digress. It was so their walkthroughs, you have to do the final walkthrough when they say you do the final walkthrough. And that might be days. That's when, you know, their site manager is at the property. That site manager might have 10 different neighborhoods they're working on. And so when they're there, it might be days before you have your closing. So there was an incident where in between the final walkthrough and closing that all of the appliances were gone. So I'll tell you what I've done with my final walkthroughs for new construction. I have physically gone right before we go and walk around and creep around. I don't care. I'm looking through windows. I'm doing the outside, making sure that the air conditioning unit's there.
Yep.
It's the least it's the least I can do, but at least it's something.
Right.
Going, hope everything's good for the last 5 days. So we kind of take a look, make sure that the floor, you know, what we can see, floorings look good. The appliances are where they need to be, that you could see, and that there's no extra damage on the exterior or any interior that you could find. But
yeah. In our market, this differs from place to place, but in our market, when you close on a property, you bought it. So, you know, we've had questions. Do we really need to do a final walkthrough? Do I have to be there? Yes. And yes.
for our buyers,
you are saying this is good enough for me and I'm ready to take it. And we've had some this past year, including Nicole, we've had some what we call post-closing possession. So people sometimes stay in the home and rent it back from the new buyers if they aren't ready to move on. And so we do 2 final walkthroughs in that case. We do one while the homeowners are still living there, just to kind of document the state it's in on that day that the buyers purchase it. And then we do another one to make sure that everything is as it should be when the buyer takes possession.
And that is truly the risk. I don't love them. I know you do them more than I do. But of course it's, you know, the nature of the beast sometimes with the markets, but it's one of those things that sometimes it's a risk. You are buying that property the day you buy it. Your funding happens. It's your house, and somebody else is living in your house, even temporarily. And you know, we hopefully all go around, or at least I like to go around, assuming that people are doing their best. They're right people, good people who do the right thing. But you just never know when, and it's sometimes those people usually aren't like that, but then something happens with their life, something gets damaged, something.
Well, all of this can be a very emotional process, right? So,
yes.
So we often see that people act, you know, I'm sure that seller who didn't fix the garage door was not just a jerk. He probably was just done. He just, you know, at that point, whatever was going on in his life and whatever reasons they were moving and whatever, you know, kind of nonsense they had to deal with. He
packing and working and all that stuff, and now needing to wait for a repair guy to come and replace and
right.
just
and in his mind, I'm sure he justified that it was okay to do that. And we see, as you say, we see people a lot of times, especially several years ago when circumstances were rough, people were not leaving their homes on purpose. And so there were a lot of things that happened that were done out of frustration, anger, disappointment in, you know, things not going as they had planned. And oftentimes with the idea that they were going to get back at the bank and a lot of times, innocent buyers had to take those things on. And that's also why we always encourage, and not everybody does this, but we always encourage both our buyers and our sellers to put themselves in the other person's shoes. I can guarantee you, if you are a buyer who's very aggressive about getting every single thing that you think is due to you, and you're going to put somebody into a difficult position just because you can, that seller will often find an opportunity to even the score.
Yes, I was just going to say, when you were talking about that garage door, there's a good chance that that person just put in a new refrigerator or new carpeting or something. Well, I already did this for them.
Right.
I'm not doing anything else for them.
Exactly.
So yeah, it definitely is a tit for a tat, tailing how much good versus how much bad, and justification happens sometimes.
And we always work with our clients and try to encourage them to take the emotion out of it, but that's not always possible. So a lot of these things happen because of emotional situations.
Well, and even really except for your last one, I mean, those were opportunities from somebody else, somebody not party to these transactions, who took an opportunity of a house that wasn't using an air conditioning, wasn't actively lived in, and anybody would notice them coming in and out.
Exactly.
Those type of situations.
Right. We also hear a lot of horror stories about things that happen at inspections, or inspectors falling through the ceiling is kind of a common one. I mean, I've never had it happen to anyone I even knew, but we've seen that from our colleagues more than once, right? They misstep off of one of the ceiling joists in the attic and come right through onto the bed in the master bedroom. So that's a bad one. But I heard a story recently of a family that moved into a home and was so excited to light a fire in the fireplace that they didn't heed the inspector's advice to have the chimney. Inspectors typically don't inspect chimneys and fireplaces in our market anyway. I don't know if that's
the interior. So, I mean, sometimes you'll get a note saying that there's flashing that's not up, correct, or something with.
If they notice something from the bottom or from the top, they'll note that. But most of the time, they say get an inspection from a qualified fireplace
and a cleaning
And so this family did not wait for that, and they lit a fire in the fireplace that was for decorative purposes only. They had been told that it was working, but the entire chimney had been removed.
Oh, wow.
And so their house quickly filled with smoke, and the fire department was called, and they bought a house without a working fireplace. Taking
notes to ask important questions before I list a house saying it has a fireplace.
Exactly. And one more thing I want to caution. I saw this happen. Yes, you can absolutely have it checked if you want to, Nicole. In Illinois, during our 5 AI days, you can have any inspection you want. So if that's something that's important to you, then you want to make sure that it functions. That's an extreme story. Most of the time, if there's a fireplace that doesn't work, it's a fix. It's not somebody completely dismantled it. But it can happen. So one thing I want to say quickly, and we're over time as usual, is Facebook, social media. So I just saw this happen in a local group, public group, where someone posted that they were thinking of and it was an anonymous post. Yes, Nicole, if you didn't have a fireplace, that would be a horror story in itself. But I should put up, I guess, what she's saying, what I'm responding to. So an anonymous post that was basically suggesting that they were thinking of walking away from a home sale contract based on inspection to a Facebook group. And one of the replies was, not anonymous, I hope you're not the buyer for my house. They just had their inspection yesterday, and I know a couple of things were found. We're willing to give a credit. Oh my God, don't do that. You just made a disclosure, first of all, publicly, that you are aware of deficiencies, and you've told the entire world what you're willing to do about it. And you've taken all of the negotiation power away from your realtor and your attorney, and they can no longer protect you. So always, when you are thinking about posting about an ongoing, especially a current transaction,
try not to.
Don't. First of all, don't. Secondly, if you feel like you really, really need to, talk to your realtor first. Make sure we are the ones who see all of these things that you could never even imagine happening. And so we know why you shouldn't do those things.
And also, I'm going to give in one more disclosure before we close this up. Maybe this isn't we need to do a social media one of these, because don't seek out your buyer or your seller either on Facebook. I've had it go bad. I've had a lot of side conversations and this, and will you leave this, and I'll leave this, and da-da-da-da-da. And then by the end, people are like at each other's throats.
I remember my father saying in a very frustrated voice, well, you realtors never want us to talk to each other. No, we don't. And it's not.
It can go nice. It can be. Trust me, it can.
Remember all of those emotions. Remember all of the things that we are the buffer in between. Okay, I wasn't going to tell on you, Nicole, but I had to text her and say, take that post down.
Oh, no.
So, and, of course, she's a great person, and she was taking care of anything that needed to be taken care of. This was mostly cosmetic stuff that she was asking about, but still, it can put you in a very precarious position, especially when you've got those high emotions from a buyer side. So yes, we have had buyers and sellers who've met and that's gone well, but that is the less usual.
I mean, it could be 50-50. Maybe it's 25-75 that it goes bad, but why take those risks?
Yep.
Over, will you leave your coffee table?
Exactly. Oh, and that next week we'll talk about my nightmare with furniture that was being
yes.
Oof.
Yes.
That was
yes.
So
we've already got more stories.
We'll see you next week. Tune in and bring your stories. We want to hear them.
Yes, absolutely. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.